Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Monday night.
Yeah.
It's movie time.
Yeah.
We're already talking about strap-ons.
Yeah.
Because
Murder Hornet's in there saying, Tom, where's that video of, what's that video? I need my video. I said, which one? The one of me, Jen, and that strap on? He goes, okay. He just goes, okay.
that'll work.
Yeah, because the other day he was like, you had to give me video of you getting pegged. And I said, hey, ain't gonna happen, bro. It's not gonna happen. Well, you know, fucking perverted ass ex-army dudes making porn and shit.
Wanted to see.
Yeah, trying to watch each other get pegged. That's like some shit he'd be into. Just so he could laugh at it. It's gonna be big money, bro.
Like I said,
it's gonna be big money.
Tom
man.
has a price, but it's probably higher than.
It's high. It's high. We're gonna talk about motorcycle money, bro.
Well, shit, go for more than that. I mean, I would go for more than that.
I ain't gonna say I ain't a hoe. I'm an expensive hoe. If I'm a hoe, shit's gonna be expensive.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way to be, really.
There's a price for everything. If some motherfucker comes to me and says $1 million and shit, you're gonna be like.
Okay.
Let me get back to you. I'm gonna think about this. I'm gonna have some serious soul searching.
Some soul searching.
Yeah. This is a badass flick.
I liked this very much.
The Stairs at Goats. It's fucking good. It's a good movie. An all-star cast. It's funny. And the funniest thing about it is it's based in something that really happened.
Yeah, they took some liberties. They took a lot of liberties, but it is very loosely based on a true story.
It's based on a book that I read. I don't remember the name of the dude that did it, but wrote it. But he was an Army Ranger who got shot in the helmet in the K-pop. He was at some kind of range, and every time he'd wake up every now and then and dream true. And he told his company commander, "I've been having these dreams, and when I have the dream, I know it's going to happen, and then it happens." And his commander said, "Next time you have one of those dreams, tell me what it is. We'll see if it happens." And evidently he did it again, twice in a row. And his commander started talking about it to other officers, and they ended up sending him to this kind of covert U.S. military program about they were trying to develop psychics. And he wrote a book. It's called Psychic Warrior. I first heard about the dude off the Art Bell show, and he would say some wild shit. But in the book, Psychic Warrior, he tells a pretty good story. It did happen. That unit did exist. When it got out of what they were doing, they shut it down in Congress. Because even in the book, he said that as time went on, that unit became hokey as fuck. You had lesbian Wiccan army girls in there reading tarot cards and all kinds of shit. You know what I mean? A lot of it was fucking hokey. And they used that to fucking shut it down. But what they did have going on that actually seemingly did kind of work was remote viewing. And when you, in the book, they kind of give the method of how they did it. And everybody did it kind of differently. But they ended up working on a certain standardized way of getting somebody to see something remotely without going like astral projection. Some of them did astral projection, but they weren't doing it that way. They were doing it using blind tests like trying to describe an object that was in a bag, and their description of the object that was in the bag, unbeknownst to them, would have been like the description of the shape of the house that they were looking for. Everything was blind. So the person is making these, I guess you could say, guesses or these psychic feelings. But he didn't even know what he was being asked to target. Only the guys given the test. They realized that the less the psychic knew about what he was being asked, the more accurate he would be. If you told him to look for something in particular, it would be more wildly inaccurate. So it was a bunch of blind questions to get him to basically to describe something. But they knew what it was he was describing, and he didn't. So that was kind of how they did it. So it's not quite an out-of-body thing. It seemed more like a statistical thing somehow. They needed a bunch of random shit that they could kind of control. But anyway, the movie's based on that.
No, it's not based on that book. It's based on a different book.
Well, it's based on that army unit.
Yeah, but it's based on a different book.
Based on a different book. Okay.
Not that book.
Okay. But it's that book that I read does kind of describe some of the aspects of the unit that they talk about in this movie. It was more accurate, though, in the book. because it's wild shit, but it is funny. And some of the stuff that's talked about in the movie is kind of discussed in the Psychic Warrior book. Not so much like Jedis, but
well, I was watching a thing earlier. Okay, so the book that this is based on is also called The Men Who Stare at Goats. Okay. And it came out in 2004, and it was actually written by a British journalist who kind of interviewed some of the people that had been involved in some of this. And I was watching a video earlier that was like comparing the book to the movie, and apparently, because I'm sitting there watching the movie and I'm like, now did they just add the Jedi thing in there because Ewan McGregor was in it, and they, you know, because they get a lot of mileage out of that joke? But evidently, at least according to one or two people who were supposedly involved in all this stuff, they did have a Project Jedi, which was like a sub-project of one of the other projects that were kind of under, I guess most people think of it under the umbrella of Project Stargate, I guess, but it's all those kind of programs.
Yeah, Project Stargate, which was kind of like a MK Ultra type thing, except it wasn't CIA, it was U.S. Army intelligence. And I don't think CIA knew that much about it. They did do some stuff for them, but I don't think they knew how it was done. Their most successful mission was they had a guy remote view a bunch of fucking Soviet Typhoon-class submarines and described them pretty fucking accurately for the CIA before anybody knew what a Typhoon-class submarine was. I think he even correctly described how many missile tubes were in it, what it was shaped like. They asked him what was in this hangar. They showed him a picture of that hangar, and he went astral. He went like astral projection, and he came back and he says it's a submarine, and they didn't believe him because the hangar was landlocked. It was on the land. But then months later, they started digging a damn moat to it and filled it full of water, and the side of it opened up, and a fucking submarine fucking came out of it. So it was a submarine. It was a Typhoon-class submarine, the first one, I believe. But he described it pretty accurately. That was their biggest claim to fame that was kind of declassified. But this movie's kind of about the military's interest in psychic abilities. Which,
like I said, everybody, I think most people that know about Project Stargate and all that kind of stuff know that they did actually do that. I heard, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, because one of the things that they bring up in the movie, obviously, you know, talking about the Men Who Stare at Goats, is that there was a person in this unit that could, or at least one time, did stare at a goat and kill them. And evidently this did happen in real life. But it wasn't the character that George Clooney is based on. George Clooney in this is great. Based on, he's probably like the best part of this movie. He's based on he's like a composite of a bunch of different characters. And really, and I kind of feel like Ewan McGregor's character is kind of a stand-in for Jon Ronson, the guy that wrote the book that it was based on, because he's a journalist too. But other than that, some of the other characters are kind of sort of based on real people, but not really, because it seems like they took a lot of the situations in the book and just kind of made them comedic.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, like I said, it's loosely based on real shit, but a lot of that stuff did happen, but they changed a lot of stuff around and to make it funnier and more ridiculous.
And I think people today would be kind of scoff at the idea that the military took things like psychic abilities seriously. It wasn't just them. The Soviets the same way, and it went all the way back to the early 1900s. It started with spiritualism. As religious people became less fundamentalist in the United States and in Europe, getting less involved in Christianity, they still believed in the afterlife and psychic abilities. And it wasn't poor people. It was elite people, intelligent people, people that had university degrees, and they wanted to get down to the bottom of it. Well, a lot of these people with these educations ended up in the military as, general staff officers and field grade officers. So they would kind of take these beliefs with them, and they would want to know. So this shit was going on in Europe even in the 20s and the 30s. Military's wanting to know could you really talk to the dead? Because they might know something about the outcome of a future battle. Or maybe a spirit could actually tell you what somebody else was thinking who was alive. They could come up with anything. Could a person actually bend metal with their mind? Could you turn that into a weapon you could use on the battlefield? Could you have a guy in a ship look at another ship, an enemy ship, and bend metal inside of it and get the ship to sink? There's all kinds of applications if it was real. So they wanted to know. And it went on for a long, long time.
And I kind of feel like they sort of made a joke about why they started doing it, like in the movie, but it's not really a joke because it's kind of true. Because they're just kind of like, well, they essentially like thought the Russians were doing it. Whether the Russians were really doing it or not, they didn't really know. But they said, well, if we think the Russians are doing it, then probably we should do it too. Yeah. Like, just in case. There's something to it.
The Russians always believed in that stuff. Going back to Rasputin. You could take it back to Rasputin. He's using damn mental powers to keep the Tsar's son from dying. So their elite class has always believed in paranormal stuff. Because, it's part of religion. Well, this went all the way back, after the Bolshevik Revolution and when you have the Soviet Empire. They were still interested in psychic abilities. Now, in my day, as a young kid, before the Soviet Union broke up, when the fucking the Cold War was still going on, we were kind of told that the Soviets have psychic abilities. They have a psychic woman who could kill a frog by looking at it. She could move a fucking needle of a compass. She could stop a watch, and they actually showed film of her doing this. And they showed it in the Soviet Union, and it leaked into the United States sphere. You'd see that shit on fucking U.S. television, like In Search Of and stuff. And that would reinforce into the minds of, like, American officers in the military that there might be something to this because, shit, the Russians are doing it. They showed it. Their whole military and their fucking, what do you call it? Their KGB must be doing it. Little did we know at the time that was not really Soviet intelligence or military people. That was civilians. People forget that the Soviets had regular civilians and they also had television, and they could end up on television with ideas that were not from the government. It was just some civilian guy came up with it, and as long as it didn't violate any of the rules of the Soviet Union, you could put it on TV. They even kind of made movies and stuff. As long as it didn't violate their version of PC, you could put it on. But in the Western mentality, whenever you saw something that came from the Soviet Union, it must have been the government. You know what I mean? It must have been the Soviet government that did it. But a lot of that stuff didn't come from the Soviet government. It came from Soviet civilians. But it would cause us to respond by, we got to look into this shit. And this is partly what Project Stargate was as well. They're doing it, so we got to do it. Must be something to it.
Yeah, which, like I said, they kind of bring up in this one. But like I said, this is loosely based on real shit, but they do kind of make a black comedy about it.
Yeah.
Which I think is like really, I found it like largely successful. This seemed like it kind of came out in 2009, and I remember seeing trailers for it back in the day, but I never saw it. Like, I never went to see it, and I could, I knew what it was about, but I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good, but I just kind of forgot about it. And I kind of feel like a lot of people forgot about it. This is one of those movies that came out and then it got kind of mixed reviews. And then it just kind of vanished. I kind of felt like the main criticism at the time was that it wasn't hard-hitting enough. Like, it wasn't edgy enough. Like, the humor wasn't dark enough. But I don't think I agree with that assessment. I think they, it's kind of dark subject matter anyway, but I think they kind of went in the right direction by going in a more kind of, like, lighthearted, almost goofy kind of tone with it. I think that worked out really well. Because really, like, when we were watching the movie, I think I just pretty much laughed, like, through the whole fucking thing.
It's good. It's a good movie. Yeah.
And most of that was from George Clooney, who just has impeccable comic timing. And I think that his character works so well because he clearly believes everything. He clearly believes that he has paranormal powers.
Yeah.
But the movie is kind of saying he probably doesn't have paranormal powers because, like, everything that happens, there's, like, other explanations.
There's other explanations.
So it's like, so I like that they had that ambiguity, but it's like he's just so sympathetic because he very clearly believes, he's very earnest.
It didn't matter because he got it done.
But it's like, so whether he really had the powers or not, it didn't really matter because he accomplished what he set out to accomplish.
It's kind of like the power of faith.
Yeah.
Showing that the power of faith actually does work. Even if what you're talking about probably it didn't actually happen the way you think it did. You know what I mean? Like there's one part where he tries to do this this time-proven paranormal fucking ninjutsu move where you can run and jump through the air with 2 knives and come down and get a kill strike on somebody. One of the dudes in their unit figured it out. He was like an Ishida Kim type dude.
Yeah.
A Bushido and shit. And he did the same thing to stop a damn kidnapper, an Iraqi kidnapper who kidnapped him. They were selling to one of the paramilitary groups. He jumps at him and comes down on him with both hands like that, but he didn't have knives in his hand. It didn't matter. It was just the psychic...
the energy.
Psychic energy, him coming down on you like that fucking would defeat you. And he did it, right? The dude had an AK, I think, or a pistol. I don't remember. And the move looked cool from one angle when they showed it, but then when they showed you what it really looked like from the side, it looked lame as fuck. He just jumps and fucking kind of lands on the dude and startles him so much because the dude was such a douche, what it looked like, that he got distracted, and I think he got his weapon from him, and the dude ran away.
Yeah.
But didn't he get his... I think he disarmed him, didn't he?
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, it was just...
Yeah, a lot of it was just like...
it worked. So it worked, but it...
It was just kind of like dumb luck,
It was well, I guess.
Sort of.
I guess. It worked, but it didn't work... It didn't work as dramatically as you would kind of think it would. It'd be like something Ishida Kim would come up with, if you knew who that is. If you watch our Bushido show. Fake ninja. It's like fake ninja shit, but it worked.
And I would also like to add that I love that they reference the dim mock in this.
Yeah,
which we also talked about on the Bullshit show.
Hand, death touch.
Yeah. Like Kevin Spacey's character, who is his like antagonist, gives him the death touch. And then there's this whole discussion because Ewan McGregor plays kind of like this naive like journalist who just goes to Iraq. He's trying to get a big story and all this other stuff, and he just happens to meet up with George Clooney's character, who's like this psychic Jedi warrior or whatever, and he's supposedly on this mission, and he says that Kevin Spacey, like a long time ago, because it's flashback, it goes back from like present day, which is 2003, like back to showing the the evolution of the program. And, like, so he says, yeah, Kevin Spacey, before, like, after I left, like, he gave me the dim mock, like, he just goes, pap, like, in his nose.
Yeah.
And then he tells him what...
cancer.
He tells him what it is, and he's like, yeah, it's the death touch. He's like, wow, people die, like, right away. He's like, no, like, sometimes 18 years later, or some shit like that. And it's just, like, he's totally, like, deadpan, and it's, like, super, super funny.
Now, the dim mock was a real thing. It was a real fake martial art.
It was a real fake martial art.
Yeah.
That's why I laughed with that. I was like, oh my god, that's awesome they put that in the movie.
That was created by a martial artist from Chicago. He ran the Black Dragon Fighting Society. His name was Count Dante.
Yeah.
That was his screen name before there were computers. He had a fake name, Count Dante. But the thing about Count Dante is that, the dim mock, that's fantasy, okay? Just you touch somebody, pow, just regular fingertip pressure, and it kills them sometime in the future. Okay.
So whenever you die, it could be 20 years later. Whoop, dim mock, I gotcha.
You can claim a kill, you know.
Right.
The thing is about Count Dante, and Count Dante advertised his dojo and his training in comic book magazines, and he sold shit there. His wild ass fucking, and he was a hairdresser. He was a colorful character who ended up dying in his sleep from like a fucking an ulcer in his stomach.
Somebody gave him the dim mock.
Yeah, dim mock must have got him. And he died pretty young. I think he was still I think he was only in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. But I will come. But Count Dante was no Ishida Kim. Okay.
Well, that's a completely different situation.
That was Count Dante actually did fight.
Yeah.
Many people witnessed his fights and said no, he was good. Even detractors said no, he was good. He was a lunatic.
Right.
He was actually involved in the fucking Chicago dojo wars where they were blowing up other dojos. Dudes got killed with swords and shit during the dojo wars. It was something straight out of fucking... What's the name of that fucking...
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Straight out of fucking Cobra Kai. But these are adults. Okay?
Yeah.
So I am going to give fucking Count Dante some credit. He was a real martial artist. He did fight.
Yeah.
He was pretty good.
He wasn't pretending.
Yeah.
And just like sneaking around other people's windows and pretending it was ninja tactics.
And you look at him, and he's not a physically impressive specimen, but he was crazy.
That would probably helped, honestly.
Yeah, I think they had a lot to do with it. And he did do some good shit. He was in Chicago. He was one of the only martial art dojos that would take non-white students. So he had some badass black dudes that looked. I seen photographs of him. You didn't want to fuck with him. He had 3 of those, and he had some Hispanic guys. And that was good because he kind of started black martial arts. This is back in the 70s. And that, they had black martial artists. A lot of that, you could trace that right back to Count Dante. So he was a real martial artist, but there was no dim mak. No.
But like I said, that's why I thought it was so funny that they actually referenced it in this movie.
Yeah.
And great. And that George Clooney he explains it like completely seriously, like it's real.
Like it was a real thing.
And then it's like it's super funny. Like that's very, very funny to me when the premise is like so absurd, but like people are acting like it's not absurd. That's like really funny to me. So I think that's why this movie was so funny to me. It's because George Clooney really fucking sells it. Yeah. Like his character, like I said, he's based kind of on a real guy or on several real guys, but he's kind of like a composite, so he's not like just one person that's based
it's a composite of a bunch of them.
Yeah, but he's, like I said, he's just so good because he's just so genuine, and he just really believes in his mission, and he really believes in this stuff. Yeah. And as it goes on, like him and Ewan McGregor team up, because Ewan McGregor, like I said, he works in some like half-ass like small town newspaper or whatever, and then at the beginning his wife leaves him for the editor.
Yeah, this is funny as shit.
And he feels like a loser, and then so he's
the editor's a much older, fatter, fucking one-arm guy. His hot wife runs off with the dumpy dude. Right, yeah.
Because he's more successful, I guess.
More money, yeah.
Yeah, so Ewan McGregor's character is all like, well, I'm going to go do something big. So he's going to go, this is set in, part of it is set in 2003, like the Iraq War. So he's going to go to Iraq and like get a big story. And while he's there, like prior to going there, he interviewed this dude who said that he could kill hamsters by looking at them, and he said he was in this psychic spy program. So that's kind of what got Ewan McGregor interested in this whole thing, was he went to interview like this local crackpot who showed him this video of like him of like looking at the hamster, and the hamster did actually kind of like go ooh and like fall over, but then like it gets back up, and he's like, well, you said you killed it, like you didn't kill it, you know what I mean? And then he's like, my mom won't let me show you the one where I killed it. You know what I mean? It's like this whole thing. And so that guy mentions George Clooney's character, like he was like the best of the best, like from this program. And it so happens that when Ewan McGregor goes to Kuwait and he's trying to get into Iraq, he happens to meet him at a hotel bar, and he starts following him around because he's like, that's where the story is.
Clooney's character is an ex-Special Forces guy.
Right.
He leaves Special Forces to go into basically Project Stargate to become a Jedi. And he's serious about it. I am a Jedi. And he's fucking got all these. He can cloud burst. He can look at a cloud until.
Oh my god, I love that scene.
He does while he's driving.
They're driving across the desert.
Got all these fucking They're
driving across the desert, and he's like, he's gonna do cloud bursting. So he's gonna stare at a cloud in the sky, and it's gonna all break up. And so he's doing it, and you was like, oh wow, it like really worked. And then meanwhile, he runs the car into the one boulder in the whole entire desert.
Instead of calling it Project Stargate, they call it the Earth World something or other world.
Well, now they call it what did they call it? The New Earth Army.
New Earth Army.
Okay, but in real life, the book that was written with all of this stuff in it, that wasn't quite as outlandish as what they show in the movie, but kind of, was actually called I think it was called the First Earth Battalion. That's what they called it in real life. So they're not far off. It's not far off.
Okay. In the movie, it's what's it called?
New Earth Army.
New Earth Army.
New Earth Army.
And its mission was to make the U.S. Army wonderful.
Yeah.
To make it wonderful. And fucking, he said that what they had planned to do was like to parachute into combat and destroy the enemy aggression against them using glitter eyes. Wasn't it glitter eyes?
I think it was sparkly eyes. I was going to say that made me laugh so hard.
And Ewan McGregor, the reporter's like, sparkly eyes, what's that? And he goes, you ready? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And he's driving, he's going. He's looking at his eyes. He goes, you feel it? And he's like, yeah, I feel it.
It's like It's like sparkly so awesome. Eyes. Like the George Clooney just keeps
sparkly
looking at him.
Eyes, yeah. They look at you, and then all of a sudden you don't want to be aggressive anymore. Because I feel it. I feel it. They were gonna. So in the New Earth Army, it was kind of new agey.
Yeah.
Where they would come in, they'd be wonderful and shit, and they would like stop all the fighting, and you would join them, and fucking we could all be brothers in the earth and everything. It's real.
Yeah, they were doing like
shit.
And honestly, the one guy that was like the head of the program is played by Jeff Bridges.
Yeah,
who is essentially playing the dude here.
Yeah, he's great.
But I mean, and that's not a ding on his performance because it's super fun. Like, and I think it's a lot more. I don't know. I kind of feel like this performance was like maybe more. It's a little bit different than the dude, but it's like a similar kind of.
Yeah, he's
thing.
Wearing BDU uniform with fucking no hat, a long fucking white hair and a ponytail, and he's fucking in front of the troops, fucking getting ready to train dudes and saying all kinds of fucking new agey shit, but he's doing it like real macho, and
making him dance.
Yeah, and making him dance and feather dancing, and fucking one dude fucking he gave instead of giving medals, he says we don't give out medals and shit, fucking so he's giving out eagle feathers. He gives fucking George Clooney an eagle feather. Later on, he says, "Look, that's not an eagle feather. Don't tell him though, because that's a turkey feather. But the end of it died. He says, can't get a real eagle feather. He doesn't know that.
You get like a $25,000 fine.
Yeah. You can't get an eagle feather. Fucking it's a fine."
Just all
kinds of funny shit in it,
I mean, yeah, and like I said, I kind of feel like I don't know. That's what I really. This movie reminded me a little bit of what was the movie about Chuck Barris, like saying that he was like a secret agent. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. This kind of reminds me a little bit of that, or maybe like Burn After Reading. It's kind of like a similar kind of movie. I had actually never seen this, even though I had heard about it and I knew what it was about. But I'm glad we just picked it at random because we were just like scrolling through. We couldn't decide what to watch. And then I saw this come up on Amazon Prime and Tom's like, oh, that actually sounds pretty good. And I was like, yeah, I've been wanting to see this. So we just like picked it at random.
No, it's worth watching.
And I'm glad that I did because but like I said, I see that like it did get really mixed reviews and still gets really mixed reviews. Like some people really, really love it. And some people really did not like it just because they thought it was too silly or something like that. But I don't know. I really liked the tone of it. I can see how people might be like, oh, well, it's kind of dark subject matter. They should have gone darker, like more satirical with it. It is satirical, but it's not. There's no humor in here that I think will offend anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like pretty lighthearted. Yeah. But I think that works in its favor, though, I thought.
Yeah, George Clooney's going through the desert. He's bringing this reporter with him. They're trying to get into a rocks. And it turns out he got a mission. He got a message. He says he was asleep, and in a vision, he got a message from his old commander. Fucking Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges' character,
yeah. He says he wants him.
Bill Django is the character.
Meet him in Iraq, and he goes, "This is not an official mission." And he goes, "No, I had a vision." And he's like, "Fuck." So
we're trapped out here in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, with a fucking lunatic.
Getting kidnapped by insurgents and all this other kind of shit.
He goes, yeah. He's out here somewhere. He goes, "You don't know where we're going to?" No. And he finds him anyway. So it makes it look like that his psychic abilities worked. He found him.
Yeah.
Later on, he says, "Yeah, I saw him in a dream, but he also called me on the phone."
Oh, well, Kevin Spacey says that too. He's hey, this guy in the thing said that he talked to you, and that's how you got the information.
Yeah. So it's not he saw him in a dream, but he called him before on the phone. It's just the psych. He did find him.
Yeah.
But he caught him on a phone first. It told him where he was somewhere in Iraq. So he went looking for it. Then he had a vision in his dream. But he didn't tell the dude about the phone call.
Yeah.
So
well, that's kind of and now that you're saying that, and I was thinking about this when I was watching the movie too, because that's kind of one of the interesting things to me about the movie is that George Clooney, his character's name is Lynn.
Yeah.
But he clearly believes that he has psychic powers, right? And the movie leaves it ambiguous. Maybe he does, or there's always another explanation. There's always another natural explanation, but you could like read it either way. But I'm kind of wondering, in light of how his character goes, it does seem like if he knew that he got a phone call,
Wouldn't have been the same.
Is he just knowingly not telling people that he got a phone call so he could make it seem like he got a psychic vision?
I don't know.
Or is he just like, just forgetting that, like, to back up his own
He did have a psychic
beliefs.
vision, according to him. He did have a psychic vision.
Yeah,
but it was
that
after
might
the
be
phone call.
Right, that might be true. So he just like conveniently tucked that away in his brain.
Yeah, he didn't. He kind of the information he gave back was kind of a little bit out of order.
Sure.
You know, like he called me and told me generally where he is. I'll find him.
Because
And then I saw him in a dream.
Because he
left
does
out the first part.
He seems like an absolute true believer,
Yeah,
which, like
yeah,
I said, is. I think that's one of the funniest things about this movie, that he absolutely makes it work.
Yeah.
Is that he takes it entirely seriously. Like, he's completely genuine. He actually does believe all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he comes, even though some of the shit he says is utterly ridiculous, like especially like that sparkly eyes thing, which just made me bust out laughing.
Yeah.
But he really believes that it's working.
Yeah. Well, I love the movie because there's a lot of truth in it. Being ex-military, I fucking understood exactly a lot of the shit they were talking about. I fucking seen paranormal stuff. I've had fucking bunch of weird stuff because a lot of military guys have had paranormal shit happen to them because you're under a lot of stress, and sometimes the life that brings you into military service, for some reason, paranormal sometimes involved with that. Just fucking Terrence Pops. He fucking was over in Iraq, saw ghosts, him and his unit, while they were at fucking Abu Ghraib fucking prison. That place was a death camp. They tortured people there for fucking decades. If you're gonna see ghosts, you're gonna see them there. Okay. And also the power of faith. It's very important to have a faith of some kind, because sometimes when you're working in the dark and you just fucking don't really know fucking if you're gonna make it or how this shit's gonna, you have to believe in something, and sometimes just that blind belief in things gets you through it. And that's kind of what's happening to this guy. Is, the George Clooney's playing.
He has faith that everything is going to work out okay.
Right.
Because he's one with the universe or whatever.
Him doing the stupid fucking two-handed jump without the knives was a leap of faith, literally.
Right, yeah.
Literally a leap of faith that he could take that gun from that guy and free himself.
So I thought, like I said...
But it was a fucking crazy-ass fucking idea, but that crazy-ass idea... got that guy. He was surprised that that fucking kidnapper so much because it was stupid as shit. It looked stupid. It surprised him so much that it worked.
Yeah.
All right, fucking. So there's something to all that stuff, and in the story, it all kind of works out. And then at the very end, the news guy played by Ewan McGregor tries to fucking pass through a wall, and he does.
Yeah. So I like that I think the movie struck a good balance between like making fun of the shit, like how ridiculous it is, and not making fun of it.
Yeah.
But like still making it comedic. Yeah, because the opening scene of the movie is that kind of lieutenant colonel guy or whoever he was, and he's like just staring really, really hard at this wall.
Yeah.
Like for a really long time. It's a great opening scene.
Yeah.
And then I think he tells that character. I think it was Stephen Lang.
He tells the secretary, this black dude working at the black army dude, he goes, "I'm going to the next room." He goes, "Okay, yes, sir." He telling him he's gonna run through that wall and go to the next office.
Yeah, he just says, "I'm going to the next room," and he's like, "Okay," and then like he backs up and just runs out of the wall, like he's gonna run through the wall.
He slams, right?
But it doesn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work.
But that's kind of why, like at the book end, like at the end where Ewan McGregor like goes and runs at the wall, and he actually does go through the wall. Because as the story goes on, like I said, it's kind of set as George Clooney and Ewan McGregor are. It's kind of like a buddy road trip kind of movie because they're trying to get to this place in Iraq. So they're kind of driving across the desert and having all these shenanigans happen. And while that's going on, we keep flashing back to stuff in George Clooney's past and like how the whole psychic Jedi program came along. So we're seeing like anecdotes from it, which a lot of those were anecdotes from the book, you know what I mean? That, but made funnier. Even though they were kind of funny to start with, but they try to like make them funnier. So it kind of switches back and forth in time. But as it goes on, Ewan McGregor, who at first, like a normal person would, like thinks this dude is just like a loon and is just completely delusional. But as it goes on and like shit works out for them, he kind of becomes a believer in his powers, essentially. Which I thought was kind of like...
Yeah, when they do find him, they find the fucking base where he's at. where Jeff Bridges is working. He's working as a private contractor
for Kevin Spacey, who's kind of like the antagonist of it. He was the one that wanted to use the psychic program for evil, like as weapons.
Yeah, the fucking Stargate program or the psychic program is now a fucking independently contracted civilian company.
Yeah,
working for the intelligence.
Yeah,
it's like it's psyops, really, what they're doing. Psychological operations, which is propaganda. But they also have a psychic wing to it. And Jeff Bridges is working in there with him. And he shows up, and then the whole unit is now together now, the three main dudes. And
after all these years.
Yeah. And instead of winning the war against the Iraqis or whatever, they fucking found out that they were taking the Iraqi prisoners and making them listen to Barney music.
Yeah.
And
torturing them.
Torture them by listening to Barney music.
And flashing lights
at them. The New Earth Army fucking kicked back in saying, no, we can't really let this shit happen. So they spiked the fucking unit's water supply with LSD, got everybody fucking high, and they released the fucking prisoners.
And all the goats.
Because they were trying to kill goats using mental powers, I believe. Isn't that what they were doing with the goats?
Yeah, they were doing other things too. Like they were using them to
spike their arms.
To show soldiers how to dress wounds and stuff like that. Yeah. Like they'd shoot a goat in the leg and then
with a fucking pneumatic gun, pow,
and then you'd have to fix it.
Right.
But the thing about it too is that the goat, like I said, and that did happen evidently. There actually was a dude who supposedly one time killed a goat by looking at it, at least according to a witness. So I don't know if it's true or not. But it was a different dude than the one that George Clooney was based on, but kind of similar. So George Clooney's character, who was supposedly like the best of the best, like he could do all this crazy shit, he could remote view and all this other stuff while listening to Boston.
Yeah,
and
like Boston. Yeah.
While drinking and listening to Boston, he could remote view. Yeah. And he was really good at it.
Yeah, he was serious about that. While listening to classic rock. Oh, yeah. Boston.
Yeah. So they actually do use More Than a Feeling in this, which actually
More Than a Feeling.
Like over the end credits, which actually is like it was very appropriate.
Yeah,
it really did fit like the whole tone of the movie. I really liked that, even though I'm not a big fan of that song. But so they asked him, like when Kevin Spacey like took over the shit and kind of wanted to make it more, more toward like weapon, like psychic weapons, he asked George Clooney if he would do the goat killing thing, and he does actually succeed, and he kills the goat, and he feels so bad about it that he starts to believe that him killing that goat like cursed everybody having to do with the program. So he became kind of like disillusioned with it after that.
Now what they based that on is, if you read the book Psychic Warrior, what they were working on, so according to the author of that book, is that there was a guy that could kill animals. I think it started off with frogs and shit. Frogs and mice, and I think goats. It might have been the same guy that they're talking about. And they wanted him to concentrate on I think it was a Soviet politician or something, if I remember correctly. They wanted him to stop his heart. And evidently he did, and that guy died of a heart attack. From what I remember the book. Maybe it didn't work. I think it did, if I remember correctly. That it did. That guy that they were targeting did have a heart attack.
Like when? Like immediately, or
during the time when he was supposed to do
it? Oh, okay. Or like Dim Mak, like 18 years later.
It was Cold War.
Yeah.
So it may have taken weeks for that, or months for the information to actually kind of filter in that dude had died. So at some time he had been targeted by that unit, and they were trying to see if they could get him to die of a heart attack, if I remember correctly. I think it was a Soviet guy. And the guy who wrote that book said that tainted the whole program, because he was going astral. And when he was going astral, he would sometimes come in contact with these basically angelic and sometimes demonic astral beings that had never really been mortal creatures. They're creatures that lived in the astral world. And they told them that they were basically these good ones said that, no, what you're doing there is totally wrong. You can't kill people that using psychic abilities. And that it was going to start shutting down all their psychic abilities, is that these if I remember correctly. If memory serves, those basically astral angelic beings were going to start shutting down people's psychic abilities inside that unit to shut it down because they were breaking rules evidently. And I can't remember in the book what that guy did. He started to have problems going astral and stuff, and he started to protest saying you can't. That, you know, basically he's telling the commanders of the unit, you can't, the spirits basically are telling me that you cannot kill people using this stuff. That they'll retaliate. That's basically.
So that's probably where they got
they got the curse thing, yeah.
Because like I said, this, even though this, you know, it's based on a book, obviously by a journalist that talked to a lot of the real people involved, but this is like a fictionalized version of it, but a lot of it is based in reality. You know what I mean? So a lot of the people are based on real people. George Clooney's character, who I think I said his character's name was Lynn Cassidy, he's actually based on a bunch of different people, but the main dude that he's based on is a dude named Sergeant Glenn Wheaton. And the guy that Jeff Bridges plays, Bill Django, he's definitely based on one dude, Jim Channon. And they said that in the 1970s, he was the one that like went into all these new age movements, which they kind of showed Jeff Bridges doing in here. I mean, they make it sillier than in real life.
New age movement.
I mean, they were silly. But I mean, they went even like way out there. I don't know. Like some of these movements were probably real. Yeah. But they didn't, you know, they sound like super out there. Yeah. But
if you ever dropped acid, you can come up with some pretty silly shit.
That's true.
Acid. And they were doing a lot of that stuff.
But Jim Channon, the real guy, was the guy that wrote the manual, and it was called the First Earth Battalion, like so that, in real life. So that's what the book in this one was based on, with all the new agey kind of stuff. First Earth Battalion. Yeah. So like I said, even though the premise seems kind of ridiculous, it's actually not as out there as it might appear at first blush if you don't know anything like about these fucking programs that your tax dollars were paying for.
Well, before that shit got shut down.
And it went on for a long time.
Now, evidently, it started off pretty serious and kind of clinical, kind of going along the lines of parapsychology. Based on my memory of that book, Psychic Warrior. But I remember that they said towards the end of it, it was getting ridiculous. They were doing fucking drum circles and calling up fucking spirits and stupid. It was
which they kind of show in this movie. Yeah, it's very very hippie. Kind of shit.
Doing yoga and fucking they're doing all.
And they were doing like like saluting the sun and all this kind of stuff.
Lesbian Wiccans out there doing tarot card readings to fucking find out what would happen. Okay, let me get into this. I've experienced paranormal stuff. And I've also experienced military service fighting where people got killed. If you're in a life and death type situation on the ground, your mind state is in the exact opposite mind state you need to say do some psychic shit. Because you're worried about the here and the now and the very material. All right? Because in combat, you're fighting for survival. To say go out of body, you're almost willing a fucking artificial death. Okay? It's a very different mindset. It's almost a very religious type thing. You're going into a trance. You're not going to be able to have that in a stressful environment. If, let's say, you were able to fucking leave your body and remote view some target on the other side of the planet, there's going to be a bunch of impurities in your experience of the target that you're looking at. It's not going to be quite the right color. The shape might be a little bit wrong. It looks like when you rub your eyes, you see a bunch of colors in there. Everything's shaped like that. Sometimes you'll see something a little bit in the past or a little bit in the future. You might see in that place two objects there at the same time. One of them is in the now, one of them might be in the future. You can't, it's much easier just to have a fucking satellite look at it. Okay? So that's what happened.
I mean, because then at least you can be sure that the information that you're getting is correct.
In a satellite imagery, you can see it now in live time. In fucking, in thermal at night. Dudes walking around, taking a piss. Somebody's screwing a goat on the inside of a field, you can see all that shit.
Or whatever.
And it can be recorded. so it can be showed to a chain of command, saying this actually happened. You can't do that with a psychic experience. It's too subjective.
Yeah.
And it's just not reliable enough for a military application. Militaries are part of governments. These are huge fucking institutions. They're organizations. They all require paperwork and proof. You can't go, look, we're going to strike this area over here because our psychic had this vision. He thinks something. It's not going to happen. They're never going to okay.
Like, I can
so you
see
can't use it.
Why they were interested in it. Because if there was something to it, then yeah, maybe they could find something there that would have a real world application. But like you said, humans are just notoriously, you know, we're just kind of all over the place. We're not super reliable. Our memories aren't reliable. So anything that a human would come up with, like you said, it's not really actionable information that you're coming up with. It's very subjective.
To somebody, I saw this in a vision.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, because it's inside your fucking head.
Yeah, you can't prove it. So how are you going to talk to an institute, an organization that's an ancient institution that requires paperwork and proof? It ain't going to happen. They're not going to accept your vision. You know, even if you have even if you had a good track record, it still wouldn't be enough for them, because if it went wrong, they'd get in a shit ton of trouble. There'd be lawsuits and fucking disciplinary action inside the fucking organization. They have to, you can't cover your own ass. You can't go, hey, look, I got it right here. And look at the video. You know that they were there. Yeah. That's why we struck there. You know, satellite's much better. If you want to know what's going on in some fucking enemy politician's head, you don't need a psychic, man. The best way to do that is to get a hooker. You have a sex operative. You hire his hooker girlfriend to feed you all the information of what he's doing and saying and where he is. That's the best way, because they'll tell his girlfriend anything. Yeah. Proven fact since the beginning of time. The information
Sometimes
you
the
collect.
Old ways are the best.
That's talk about women in combat. The best fucking high value mission that a woman could ever do in combat is to sleep with the enemy and tell you what he's doing. And they've known that for thousands of years, man. Fucking sex operatives. The best ninjas would have been women. They would have been fake prostitutes, but they're a ninja. But there were no ninjas, not as you know them. But they did have spies.
We did a whole show about that.
Yeah, spies. Spies are usually women, hot women. And they sleep with the enemy. They sell you information. That's a lot better than what a psychic can do. Because you can prove that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
like I said, it's kind of the same thing as, you know, when there's like a really bad, like, true crime kind of case. Yeah. And they can't come up with any leads or anything. So sometimes in desperation, they'll check on some shit some psychics came up with. And every now and then, it seems like probably just coincidentally, like, they get something out of it. So I can understand why they would do that, because like I said, they can't think of anything else to do, and they're like, well, might as well, it's not like we're doing anything else. But it's just kind of like, obviously that's not useful otherwise.
In my experience, paranormal type, psychic type shit is always things of low order. It's basically emotion and animal instinct. I'm convinced animals do it naturally. I think a lot of the things that they do is what we would probably call it like psychic intuition. But it's instincts and their senses and their subconscious doing things, sending them message, don't go over there. That looks scary. Yeah. That kind of shit. Because you would be able to inherit those genetically. Yeah. Animals that could do that would tend to survive.
Yeah, because that's useful.
That's right.
That's a useful skill.
Right. But that shit was not meant to for things of very high order.
Or like really specific things.
Stuff. It's general stuff.
It's mostly just to save your own ass, I feel like.
Exactly. One of the things that through the military research into like psychic abilities, one of the things that did surface that they said is pretty reliably predicted is that they had certain guys that you could put in the front of a fucking column of vehicles. There were certain guys that could predict where an IED would be, or predict get feelings that an IED was in the road, or get feelings that they were walking into an ambush. Some dudes could do it better than others. Some dudes could do it by looking at videotape when the ambush was faked. You know what I'm talking about? Like they have training video and they have fake ambushes. He could still detect where the fake ambush was. Is that psychic? or is it just a subconscious picking up on real subtle cues?
I think it's probably that second
difference?
thing.
Right.
I think it's probably that second thing, and I kind of feel like a lot of times some people are just better at, well, if it was me, I would
do it here.
Right. I would, and like, so I think that's probably what it is.
And it's happening at very deep orders back in the fucking R complex, the more animal parts of your brain. It's not logic. It's feeling. It's all of a sudden like, no, this doesn't feel right. This don't feel right. Stop.
And I feel like everybody has had that sensation
right,
at one point or another.
Right. And some people are better than others. And they have noticed that the more irrational that person is, the more likely they are to be accurate. In other words, highly rational people are thinking too much. They're too logical. They'll go, this doesn't feel right, but it's just my imagination. Because they're not following
you talk yourself out of it.
Yeah, they're not following their gut instincts. So... And this movie kind of approaches it that way.
Yeah.
Might just be gut instinct from subconscious shit.
But like I said,
it doesn't matter.
I think they approached it in the right way. Because even though it's clearly kind of making fun of it, like in show, and the humor coming from how ridiculous the idea is, the fact that they kind of also sort of take it seriously, and they kind of leave it open that maybe it is real.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of like that they...
Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. Right. Like, I kind of like that they left it like that. And it's still funny. Because it's making fun, but it's, like, lovingly making fun, I guess. Like, it's not mean-spirited.
My advice to anybody listening to the program, listen to your gut feelings. Your instincts are far older and more ancient than reason. Human reason is that's a new thing, Maybe 100,000 years, maybe 50,000 years. But instinct is millions and millions of years old, even before humans. And that tends to be pretty fucking accurate. You get a bad feeling about somebody, listen to that feeling. If you're some chick and you feel this motherfucker's creepy, he's creepy.
Yeah. And I mean, even if he turns out to be harmless, like you didn't lose anything by not associating with this stranger. You don't have to feel forced to associate with somebody.
Now, some young girls get too sensitive. They'll think things. He's creepy. No, he just likes you. You don't like him, so but he's not a threat.
That is kind of creepy. Right. Well, like I said, it's you don't. It doesn't hurt anything. I mean, you might hurt a dude's feelings, but who cares? You know what I mean? It's like everyone gets their feelings hurt.
If you see the dude and he look like he hasn't fucking showered in a week and his fucking clothes are dirty, you're dealing with fucking bum. You know what I mean? There's a reason why that. There's a sometimes being superficial is a very deep act. you mostly can just tell. Oh, okay, yeah.
You can tell a lot by looking at a person, not just it's just and it's everything. It's like the aggregate of like, what do their clothes look like? Are they clean? Are they dirty? How are they moving? How are there's lots of things.
Facial expressions, the fucking eyes.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. The Phantom said, "Were any goats harmed in this film?" No. Well, one of them is killed by George Clooney looking at him, but it's not real. I mean, he just flops over, like kind of the way Bambi flops over when she wants you to pet her stomach. Yeah. But what I heard, the real life quote unquote story of the goat getting killed by somebody looking at it was a lot more graphic. I'm glad they didn't show that in the movie, because they said basically the goat started getting really agitated and like making noises and stuff, and then the goat started like blood started coming out its nose, and then it started like foaming at the mouth, like red foam started coming out its mouth. And then it, like I said, I don't know if this is true. This was according to a witness who was supposedly there, and he said, I saw this guy just like intently staring at this goat, and it happened. But like I said, I think that only happened one time, and it could be exaggerated. It could have just been a total coincidence. It could have been a lot of things. Unless it's repeatable, it's not really a thing. You know what I mean? CB says the RAF base my dad was at kept having a ghost on the CCTV. Did they ever find out what it was? Like they actually did. Did they?
There's a moth in front of the camera.
Well, yeah, that's sometimes it is. Well, wasn't there one where for a long time people thought it was a ghost and shit like that, but it turned out, I don't even remember how long it went on, but it turned out that somebody was playing a prank. They had like a Barbie doll on a string, and we're like waving it kind of in front of the camera, like really close. Yeah. So it looked like this blurry like figure like walking around. I think it was like a car lot or something, like a rental car lot. And so it looked like this person like walking around, and everybody was like, "Holy shit!" There's like fucking just a girl went, and it turned out it was like a Barbie doll. But yeah, so I don't know. I have seen some weird shit like that where I could see if you were like a night watchman and you saw that on the camera, you would probably like shit your pants. But you know, it's not. I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's probably 99 times out of 100, it's explainable. It's probably a bug or a Barbie doll, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm really glad you like this movie, Tom. Because like I said, I had never seen it before either, so I didn't really know what to expect. But I was like, well, you know, it's got like an all-star cast. And,
it's a fun movie.
And we had like a lot of fun with it. Yeah. You know. It's just really, really funny. And like I said, that's kind of my sense of humor, like an absurd premise, but everybody plays it kind of straight. Like that's, for some reason, that's like funnier to me than when everyone's going over the top trying to be wacky. Yeah. That's like not funny at all. But this was actually very funny. And like I said, George Clooney was the best part of it. But everybody was good in it. I mean, there was that one scene where Kevin Spacey, where they were trying to remote view something that was like in a locker or something. Yeah. And he had to like channel his spirit guide, who was like an old woman or something like that. And he starts doing this ridiculous like old lady voice. Yeah. Like telling him what was in there. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, oh my God, I'm fucking dying. It was so fucking funny.
George Clooney knew what it was. It's a man in a chair.
Yeah.
And looked, and it was fucking Abraham Lincoln in the.
It was the Lincoln Memorial.
Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah. But. I don't know. But yeah, this is like pretty funny. I found it very funny, and it was just a good time. Just like a fun movie. So I think it was on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, I'm pretty sure you can watch it for free. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about it anymore, which is kind of a shame. I feel like this kind of got forgotten about
classic, man.
A little bit. And yeah, it's actually really good. Tammy told us we should also do "O Brother, Where Art Thou?" which was a Coen Brothers movie, and that also had George.
Yeah, it's a retelling of Odysseus.
It is, yeah. But we should probably do that because I've been wanting to rewatch that too. I haven't seen that in years and years.
It's Odysseus if they were a bunch of rednecks back in the 20s.
Yeah, like in the fucking Ozarks or wherever it was, like or Dust Bowl or what. I don't even remember where it took place.
I thought it was Mississippi.
It might have been, yeah. But yeah. So Phantom talked about the Manchurian Candidate too. Although he said he'd never seen the original, he just saw the remake with Denzel Washington. I've seen the original, but I've never seen the remake. So, but that's a good movie too, and I don't think we've ever reviewed that one. All right, so I guess we're going to wrap it up for this evening. So hopefully you guys can drop by on Wednesday night. We're going to do another true crime show. We're actually talking about a woman that I had never heard of before, but I think it was Dermot that recommended it on Patreon. And she is one of those killer nurses. It happened in the UK, and it's fairly recent. It only happened like a few years ago. And her name is Lucy Letby. So we're going to do a show about her on Wednesday night. So make sure to drop by for that, because that should be, I don't know about entertaining, but that should be an interesting show anyway. So yeah, so hopefully you guys have a good rest of your evening. Have a good day tomorrow, you guys. And we will see you again on Wednesday night. Good night.